Hello, and thank you for joining us to celebrate the books on the shortlist for the 2020 Booker Prize for Fiction. In a moment, the chair of the judges, Margaret Busby, will tell you more about the list and the process by which it was arrived at. But I wanted to offer a little context. Before they met to decide the shortlist, this year's judges emailed each other with their preferences, a loose basis for their discussion. At that stage, they had reread all 13 longlisted books, and in most years, a few books have tended to fall away as a result. But this year, there wasn't a single book on the long list that didn't have at least 2 votes on rereading. That's a testament to the strength of this year's long list, and I'd like to congratulate all 13 of those authors again. Diane Cook, Tsitsi Dangaremba, Avni Doshi, Gabriel Krause, Hilary Mantel, Colin McCann, Maza Mengiste, Kylie Reid, Douglas Stewart, Brandon Taylor, Anne Tyler, Sophie Ward, and Sipam Zhang. Throughout a year like no other, the 2020 Booker Prize judges have had conversations I wish I could have invited you to watch. Emily Wilson, eminent classicist and melodic translator of Homer's Odyssey, has applied rigour to the sentence and structure of every novel she read, while always remaining open to its heart. Lee Child, who you'll perhaps know as the father of Jack Reacher, is also the author of some devastating one-liners I half hope will one day become a book of aphorisms. Lemn Sissay, poet, performer, playwright, has heard each book's voice with warmth and been committed from the outset to abandoning all preconceived ideas. Samir Rahim, novelist, critic and editor, has provided the group with an unassuming intellectual backbone, gently steering the collective argument. And their chair, Margaret Busby, has held them all together with a light touch. I'll tell you a bit more about Margaret. As a publisher, she kick-started the writing career of Bucci and Mecheta, brought C.L.R. James back into print, and ushered in books in a wide range of genres by authors including Anthony Burgess and J.G. Ballard. As a friend, she lent Ben Okri a place in which to write The Famished Road and introduced Sadie Smith to the work of Toni Morrison. As an editor, she compiled the groundbreaking Daughters of Africa anthology, 2 volumes that showcase the work of 400 women of African descent. As a writer, she is funny, sly, and wise. And as chair of the judges, she hasn't sought to impose her view on her fellow readers. So, this list is the result of many congenial discussions between people who have often delighted in disagreeing. This year, new technology has restored old-school habits. The judges have met via Zoom, and smokers in Clapton and Wyoming have been able to light cigarettes and carry on talking without having to leave the virtual room. There's been a good deal of bonding over that, and even more over their palpable shared pleasure in these books. I mentioned rereading. The Booker is specifically a prize for a book that can be reread. The judges read the 6 shortlisted books 3 times, knowing that they are recommending works not just to readers here today, but to readers of the future and readers around the world. I hope they, and you, enjoy every word.
Everyone who has ever accepted the invitation to judge the Booker Prize knows the privilege and responsibility that comes with the task. We have the joy of being able to immerse ourselves all year in stories of every kind, meanwhile recognizing that we live in a changing world, and one that must keep changing until people, wherever they live, feel valued and respected. Every prize has its rules, and the Booker is no exception. Rules about eligibility. Novels written in the English language and published in the UK or Ireland between the 1st of October 2019 and 30th September 2020. And the judges get to consider only those titles that qualify. There are rules about how many submissions publishers may make, about how many other titles may be called in. My fellow jurors are Emily Wilson, Lee Child, Samir Rahim, and Lemn Sissay. We come from dissimilar backgrounds, have led very different lives, yet I believe between us we cover the spectrum of literary creativity, production and consumption. That trajectory from writer to editor and publisher, to reviewer to consumer and reader. I couldn't have wished for better or more principled reading companions. As we began this literary adventure of judging the Booker Prize, we didn't check passports or birth certificates or work permits before we read each book. In many ways, we came as close as possible to reading blind, since the constraints of months of lockdown meant that we had to read submissions as PDFs on screen, so were mostly neither distracted nor seduced by book jackets, whether attention-grabbing or off-putting. So when we evaluated the choices we had made for the long list of 13, drawn from some 162 possibilities, it was revelatory to analyse the breakdown of debut writers to seasoned practitioners, the ratio of female to male writers, the diversity of ethnicity, age, country of residence. It's been gratifying that by and large our unexpected long list selection was welcomed. However, just as there should be no sense of entitlement about which books prevail, so no writers, or indeed publishers, who were not successful contenders should feel invalidated. There are many more than even 13 books that the judges much admired, enjoyed, and will no doubt champion in other ways. Were we each producing an individual list, it would look very different from what we jointly agreed. It's very encouraging that in the past few years there seemed an innovation about the Booker that portends wonderfully well for its future. For example, looking at its history, I found it illuminating to discover that in the first 43 years of the prize, there were only 2 non-white judges out of more than 200. That's not to say that, under the auspices of the Booker, brilliant decisions haven't been made about excellent literature for decades. However, it does matter for there to be opportunities to see culture and creativity from different perspectives. Each of us makes judgments through the prism of who we are and what we know, have learned or internalized. That's why diversity has always been important, despite habitually being disregarded or ignored in many scenarios. This year's judges are a wonderfully eclectic bunch, and as chair, I bear witness to their dedication, capacity for fairness, open-mindedness, and sheer common sense and intelligence. We've worked together respectfully, with enthusiasm, and absolutely no rancour to arrive first at our long list and now our shortlist. Writers can change the world with their radical imaginations, and the scope of this year's books has allowed us to luxuriate in skillful storytelling and to be surprised by what unheard voices have to articulate. They resonated with narratives that feel particularly relevant in the context of the silences of global lockdown, ranging from hidden histories to possible futures and much else in between. This year will stand out in memory, especially because of the COVID-19 pandemic that necessitated unprecedented changes of behaviour. Lockdown has meant that we judges have never all physically been together, have had to manage virtual meetings lasting hours, factoring in various time zones as we hunkered down in different parts of the world, unable to bond side by side over a coffee afterwards or to pop round the corner to the pub. Thanks to Gaby Wood, Dottie, Hannah, Miriam, and the 4 communications team for all your help in ensuring that things have run so smoothly. The additional backdrop has been the raised profile worldwide of the Black Lives Matter movement in the wake of tragedies that should never happen. And there has been deep personal heartbreak to process. In my case, the loss of my sister. Yet we managed to come up with our long list, the book a dozen, that we were proud to launch in July. Of course, we've had to say goodbye to many titles that captivated us along the way. And to reach this next stage, where again we cannot bring some of our favourites with us, is sadly reminiscent of a gathering under lockdown rules, when not more than a handful can attend, although there are scores to whom we might want to give a warm hug. But what an unmitigated pleasure we take in the company of those who remain with us. So who are our chosen few for this next stage of the party? They are, in alphabetical order, Diane Cook, The New Wilderness, Sissay Dangaremga, This Mournable Body, Avni Doshi, Burnt Sugar, Maza Mengiste, The Shadow King, Douglas Stewart, Shuggie Bain, and Brandon Taylor, Real Life. You'll hear more about them in a moment, and we hope you will feel as engaged about them as we do, emotionally as well as intellectually. Many congratulations to all our shortlistees.
We're now going to hear from each of the judges and from all of the authors of the shortlisted books.
We judges loved The New Wilderness. It is a many-layered dystopian fiction set in the not-too-distant future. It's the environmental novel of our times. We were impressed with a novel taking on the greatest story of our times, that is, climate change. And yet it's a novel which focuses through relationships. The cause of the novel is not lost because the novel is not lost in its cause. The characters are driven by each other, held back by each other. At its centre is the intense and punishing relationship between the generations of one mother and her daughter. As readers, we sensed ourselves in the wilderness of the new wilderness, only to realise that was the writer's aim. An urgent novel reflective of what is happening in society right now. It's a novel that the older Greta Thunberg would take great pleasure in reading.
Very exciting and very surreal and super surprising, but I'm very, very, very grateful that I was chosen and that the judges responded to my work the way that they did. I found out the news through email. I was up nursing my 3-month-old and it just said, congratulations, my editor was so proud and she's so wonderful. And there was already a thread of emails from different people at the publisher saying congratulations, and I just had my baby in my arms and was just thrilled.
This Mournable Body by Sissay Dangarembga, it's set in the end of the 20th century. This is a book that's really memorable. It deals with contemporary Harare, Zimbabwe, and it takes one into different worlds. And it also takes one into the inner life of its central character, Tambudzai, in a brilliant way. And she's a heroine who first appeared in the author's first novel, Nervous Conditions, back in 1988. And we see how she's approaching middle age, and we connect with the things that she has to go through emotionally as well as societally. And it's a book that I don't think anyone will forget once they've read it. It just bowls you over.
Oh, it feels wonderful having been shortlisted for the 2020 Booker Prize. It's something every writer in the English language dreams of, I think. And it's finally happened for me after over 30 years of my career in writing. So it's been well worth the wait.
Burnt Sugar explores the complex relationship between a mother and daughter in contemporary India. Precisely written and told from a resolutely unsentimental perspective, Avni Doshi's novel explores what happens when a difficult mother starts to fade into illness and mental decline. As the title indicates, this is a novel that often leaves a bitter taste in the mouth, but that's a deliberate and often bracing effect. The author bravely pushes the limits of the reader's sympathy. This is a compelling book, often beautifully written and with startling imagery, emotionally wrenching and poignant in equal measure.
It's amazing. I don't even know what to say about it yet. I'm still quite in shock from the news. I just heard yesterday, so I'm still digesting it. But I'm really, really grateful. I mean, it's so often that amazing debut novels come out and, you know, they don't get noticed. And so I just feel that this is just an amazing opportunity to reach more readers.
As a fellow writer, I was bowled over by Mengista's effortless management of an epic and ambitious structure. As a hungry reader, I loved the way she found within that structure a personal, intimate, and tragic story centered on luminous, living, breathing characters. As a Booker judge, I was completely convinced by the end result, which is both huge in its sweep and personally owned by Hirut, the fierce and resourceful protagonist, who is dealing with wild events well beyond her previous experience. The story is important, really the opening shots of the Second World War, but rarely told before, and the whole is wrapped in gorgeous lyrical prose of the highest quality. Its place on the shortlist merely confirms its status as one of the great novels of the year.
It's unbelievable. I've been shaking since I found out, and after screaming for a really long time, I just got very quiet. I can't believe it. It's deeply humbling. I'm so grateful, and I didn't expect any of this. So I'm a bit speechless right now.
We were bowled over by this wonderful first novel, Shuggie Bain, which creates an amazingly intimate, gripping portrait of addiction, courage, and love. Shuggie Bain is a heartbreaking, heartwarming, yet unsentimental novel, which gives us a vivid glimpse of a marginalised, impoverished community in a bygone era of British history. Set in working-class Glasgow in the Thatcher years, the book evokes the relationship of a mother and son, both of whom are reaching for sparkle, glamour, and adventure that are hard to find in their economic and social circumstances. In this wonderful book, the author, Douglas Stewart, manages to treat his characters with an impressive level of dignity, humour, and compassion, as well as an unsparing clarity of vision. We very much admired the book's immersive, nuanced portrait of a tight-knit social world, its people and its values. We were deeply moved by the portrait it gives of the mother, Agnes, in her only partly futile struggle against alcoholism, poverty, and the rigid gender norms of her society. Shuggie Bain is both desperately sad and almost hopeful in its examination of family and the destructive powers of desire. We love this book.
It feels absolutely incredible to be on the 2020 Booker shortlist. I'm feeling loads of different things at the same time. I'm thrilled, I'm a little bit stunned, but mostly I'm really grateful to the Booker judges. I'm really proud to represent Scottish fiction on the shortlist, and also to bring a working class story to the shortlist. I think that's really important. And I hope now I do everyone proud back in Scotland.
Real Life by Brandon Taylor is a brilliantly written, unusual debut novel. It's a fresh take on a campus novel in that it's a young black man who's having to negotiate certain things in his career at university and trying to, in a way, find his own identity, and also trying to negotiate the identity of others through the situations he finds himself in. It's something that is really nuanced in the writing as well as powerful, emotionally powerful. And I think it's one, again, that anybody who reads will find what we saw in it that made it so unforgettable.
As a writer, the idea of readers coming to your work is what it's all about, and it's so I'm so moved by it. I'm so moved by the idea that there will be other young writers who pick up my book and allow it to become a part of their stories, and maybe they'll want to write because of it. I know that I was inspired to sort of pick up the pen by reading books that were important for me. So it's just, I mean, it's a dream come true, and I'm just really moved, and yeah, it's fantastic.
Thank you for watching. We look forward to welcoming you back for the winner announcement on November 17th.